Welcome back. Hello, howdy. How's everybody doing? This is a Penelope Ford T-shirt. I've got some AEW T-shirts added to my collection this week, and I've ordered a few more, and I'm going to stop at that because I don't need that much. But I feel like if I'm going to start doing AEW videos weekly, and I do want to review Dynamite weekly, which will get a little tricky when hockey season starts. But I record AEW every week anyways, so if you fast forward through commercials, you fast forward through parts of the match where there's rest holds, it can be done. So this week started with Dustin Rhodes versus Malachi Black. And here's what they're doing right. Malachi Black, his entrance is fantastic. The match, Dustin puts him over. Dustin wrestled. He's a good wrestler. The fans, though, love Malachi Black. And this is a problem in AEW. That some of the heels really aren't greeted like heels at all. Malachi Black, they love him. Now, he can get them to boo him, sure, but the fans really want to love Malachi Black. And then the fans chanted, "You still got it," at Dustin Rhodes, which means he got pinned right after. It's the kiss of death. You still got it. It's a weird way to basically tell a wrestler, "Hey, you're old, but you can still wrestle, huh?" And it's not the only time we heard it. Because then Punk had his promo, and they chanted it at him, too. And I thought, Punk's not that old. Like, you've still got it. Used to be more reserved for the guys who came out of retirement that were really old. Punk's, 42? But anyways, I thought that Rhodes did what he had to do, and he puts Malachi Black over. For Black, he continues this run through the Nightmare Factory, and looks great. And I'm not sure who he's on a collision course with, but looking forward to that. I could see him and Miro having quite the program, but where would you, how does that, like, do you turn Malachi face? No. Do you turn Miro face? Probably not. So we get the Punk promo, and then it was weird because while Punk's talking, Taz interrupts him. And Punk's like, "Fine, you can interrupt me because you're Taz." But then Taz is like, "I don't want to hear the names of any of Team Taz coming out of your mouth." He didn't mention Team Taz, though, during the promo. So that was weird, right? And then he brings out Hobbs, and he brings out, whoever else. And it's just sort of weird. But it seems to be setting up CM Punk going through Team Taz. So we'll see how that goes. But it sounds like we'll get Punk versus Hobbs soon. And I have to say, CM Punk and Ricky Starks could be a really good feud. That could be a lot of fun to watch. And Starks wasn't on tonight's show. This is an absolutely stacked roster. I said it after the pay-per-view. I'm saying it again here. No Brian Cage. No Pac. No Andrade. No Ricky Starks. There's a lot of wrestlers who weren't on this show, didn't wrestle on this show. This is an absolutely loaded roster, and it feels cool watching this take place and watching it grow. Then we get the Ruby Soho interview, which was almost immediately interrupted by Britt Baker, and then I thought it was kind of nice that that Britt and Ruby had this exchange, and Ruby said, "Well, I helped bringing you into this business." And then Britt said something to the effect of, "Why don't you run away to catering as that's where you've spent the last 4 years," which is a WWE reference that Ruby was forgotten in WWE, which is true. Ruby Riott in WWE, very good wrestler. The fans cheered for her. They booed her when they had to. The Riott Squad was fun to watch and buried a lot. And so it is nice to see Ruby getting the opportunity. But it was also fun to see that exchange between her and Britt backstage. And Britt is always fantastic on the microphone. Then we get Powerhouse Hobbs versus Dante Martin. Dante Martin came into this match with a five match winning streak. I really like that the win-loss records matter in AEW. And there wasn't really any skullduggery in any of these matches tonight, which again is kind of nice. I don't remember any of them ending with like a roll-up either. So again, it's kind of nice to see. Taz mentioned that he loved ballet during this. Taz, I have to say, Taz, and I know that the Botchamania talks about Taz a lot on commentary, but man, he knows that he screws up on commentary a lot. He has fun with the fact that he knows he's going to say the wrong thing. And he just says things that it's like, how is anybody sitting around him not laughing right now? But he's in there because Excalibur off getting married, so kudos to Excalibur for that. And then, of course, Hobbs wins the match. Now, Dante held his own, and there was a little bit of, exchanges with Team Taz, but in the end, Powerhouse Hobbs wins it. Then we get a Dan Lambert promo to the crowd, where he's got Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page with him, and he's basically telling the crowd that they plan to burn AEW to the ground, and AEW sucks. It's a strange way to go about it, but Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page are a very good tag team, so I'm looking forward to seeing them soon. Then they had Matt Hardy talking about how he plans to shave Orange Cassidy's head. My response, it's the same as Orange Cassidy's, which is whatever. Okay. All right. I think the fact that Orange Cassidy doesn't really react to anything and he's sort of like, it speaks to me, and I know it speaks to the fans as well. So I'm glad that feud is continuing. Then MJF comes out, and MJF is always gold on the microphone. He insulted the fans. He insulted Cincinnati, called it something I'm not going to repeat here. And then he insulted Pillman's mom. He also insulted Brian Pillman's daughter. He insults the Pillman family, which means Brian Pillman Jr. has to come out and defend the family honor. This is what I've had my fingers crossed for. I have a Varsity Blondes t-shirt because I believe in both Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. I think these kids have a lot of talent, and I think they can build their way up. So I don't expect Brian Pillman Jr. to beat MJF anytime soon. But being in the ring with MJF, and if MJF can give him, that credibility in a match and make you believe for a few moments that Pillman might win it, that can go a long way to building him up. So I thought it was fun. I also thought that MJF basically insulting Wardlow, and he did it like twice that I remember. It might have been 3 times. And Wardlow gives him this kind of side glance and kind of half-heartedly helps him. But and it reminds me of Nelson Muntz when Nelson was protecting I want to say Stewart. But anyways, he's when Nelson's protecting the nerds, and it's like, oh, I don't want to do this. And that you get some of that with Wardlow, like he's reluctantly helping MJF, and that's part of a storyline they've been playing out for a long time, that Wardlow doesn't have a choice but to work for MJF. So eventually Wardlow's going to turn on MJF, but they're slow playing that. That's going to take quite a while. Then they had Ruby Soho versus Jamie Hayter. This was a fun match. Ruby wins it with the kick. Pretty good match. And then, of course, Baker comes in and she attacks along with Rebel. And then you get Riho come out. And I thought, that seems kind of random that Riho's going to come out to make the save. Jamie Hayter kind of broke her in half because Riho's like 50 pounds and Jamie Hayter is solid wrestler. She is, honestly, I think Jamie eventually should be the champ here. But for right now, she's basically the muscle for Britt. I don't remember her getting a win since she came back. And then, of course, Chris Statlander came out too. So Statlander and Hayter is likely going to be the feud. And then Ruby against Britt is where they're heading towards. So I would expect a 6-woman tag match next week. And I would expect Rebel to probably eat the pin, because that's part of the storyline too, right? And then they had FTR and Sean Spears against Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, and John Silver. John Silver is one of the most over wrestlers who doesn't win very often that I've seen since, I want to say, Al Snow. I want to go back as far as Al Snow, where Al Snow could have the crowd completely going nuts when he was just laying on the mat and going, just pin me. And he had the whole Job Squad thing going on. And people loved it. And John Silver, he did his best. And then, of course, they lose the match. Evil Uno blames John Silver for the match, and they're all going at it. And out comes Anna Jay and Ty Conti to kind of halfway break it up. And Anna was kind of in a backstage segment with them as well, where she's like, look, we're a family, knock it off. they're obviously setting this up so either Anna's going to become the leader of the group, which I'm behind. I think Anna Jay is a natural in the ring and outside of it and on the microphone. Or there's somebody else on the way to reunite the faction. There are rumors of Bray Wyatt. I don't know that Bray Wyatt would necessarily want to step into the role Brody Lee had. But at the same time, there would be, narratively speaking, it would make a lot of sense. It would make a lot of sense for Bray Wyatt to come in. Because I don't think they're going to break the faction up. They may. And then have them go to war with each other and then have one called the Dark Order and the other one have a different name. But I think Evil Uno is a fantastic guy on the microphone as well, and I'm anxious to see where this one really goes. And of course, in the midst of all this means that the Pinnacle gets the victory too. So everything hits on this, and we'll see where the Dark Order thing ends up right at the end. Then we get a segment where the Elite are in the ring with Tony Schiavone. That didn't last. So they had the Elite come out, and then they introduced Adam Cole, which gave everybody a chance to say Adam Cole, baby, or Bebe, which is fun to say. And it's something that when he was in NXT, I found myself saying too. The fans love Adam Cole. It's almost the same situation as Malachi Black. The fans love the guy, and so it's going to be hard to get them to boo him, but I think he'll figure it out. So he kicks Tony out of the ring. What I liked about this is he said to him basically like, hey, I know you're close to Britt Baker, but if I see you looking at her in an untoward manner, I'll knock your block off kind of thing. And then called him a nerd and told him to get out of the ring. I honestly thought it was good. I thought that's some good storyline there that Adam Cole's acknowledging who Britt Baker is to him right on TV. So, because there's no other reason that he would mention her in particular, right? Then, of course, you get Kenny Omega on the microphone, and he's talking about how nobody interrupts, and as soon as that, you hear Flight of the Valkyries, which means Bryan Danielson's coming out. And, yeah, Bryan Danielson gets in the ring and starts throwing down with Omega. What I thought was funny was he puts him in the crossface. Immediately, Omega taps out. He is such a good cowardly champion. It is fantastic to watch. He immediately starts tapping. I thought that is just great. Because when it's the actual match, it's not going to happen. But the fact that they're just putting Danielson right into the main event picture makes a lot of sense. That he's there and he's ready to challenge Omega. What I also thought was nice was that he challenges Omega and Omega says, that's not how things work here. Which is a reference to WWE where wrestlers come out, they point at the belt, or they say, I want a shot. And they go, okay, you get a shot. So expect Bryan Danielson to have to run through the Elite. Maybe he has a singles match with one Jackson brother and then another. And then he ends up in a match with Cutler. I don't know how many guys he's going to have to go through, but he may have to go through the whole Elite. And then that would mean Adam Cole versus Bryan Danielson, which, thank you very much, yes please. I would love that. And one thing that I noticed, and I mentioned this too after the pay-per-view, when former WWE stars come out and they're greeted by the crowd in AEW, they look happy. It's hard to explain, but they seem very, very happy. And I think this is a great time to be a wrestler, because these are all people now who are making their money without having to be in WWE, which means that for WWE, they don't have to employ all of the wrestlers, which is what they were doing, in terms of being a major player. Now AEW's changed that. And so if you're a wrestler and you're coming up now in the indies, you've got a couple of viable choices. In fact, Impact seems to be willing to spend the money here and there where they can. And ROH is still there. So there are some options. And then, of course, if you want to go overseas, you've got options overseas as well. So I liked this segment. There were a lot of segments tonight, though, more than the wrestling, and I would expect that to change over the next couple of weeks. A lot of this tonight is we're introducing the new wrestlers to the program and getting them into feuds, right? So your main event was Moxley versus Minoru Suzuki, and wow. This is awesome chance happened right away. So you've got the hometown hero, Moxley, from Cincinnati, against Minoru Suzuki, who has a 33-year resume as a wrestler. And honestly, after this match, if Suzuki wanted to have some matches in AEW, after this, I think I would be down for that. And the fans really got behind him. What's impressive to me about that is that, remember, Moxley's a hometown hero. Suzuki still had the crowd in the palm of his hand, too. So I thought there were some good spots in this match. Suzuki did get busted open over the right eye. He played it perfectly. He even... I'm not going to say... No. But he played it perfectly and showed that he's okay with the fact that he had been cut open. And I thought it was a good bout, and Moxley ends up winning it. I thought Moxley had a really good match. So we had 5 matches on the night. They advertised Pac versus Andrade on Friday for Rampage, and we're already seeing some comments about how well Rampage is the B show and Rampage. I honestly think that the plan is that both shows will offer a different product, and I don't think we'll have an A and a B show. We'll see if that stays the case as the months and weeks go along, or weeks and months, however you want to phrase it. But tonight, I thought this was a really good show. I did enjoy it. I will agree with people who think that, for the number of women on the roster, they could probably include more women's matches and probably have a little bit less when it comes to the segments. But again, they had to bring out Punk for promo and figure out his next feud. Get Danielson in there, promo way, and get him into his feud. Adam Cole to announce he'll be wrestling next week. We don't know against who yet. At least they didn't announce it during the show. And so there was a lot of storylines they were starting tonight. So a little bit segment heavy, and by segment I mean the in-ring talking back and forth, and not as much of the wrestling. So I would expect that to change. I would expect at least six matches a night, you would think, on Dynamite. But it was a fun show. And so let me know what you thought in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.